Good morning, children. Welcome to this session of mine where I'll be teaching you about subject and predicate. Children, in the last chapter, we learned about sentences. We learned that a sentence is a group of words having a complete sense. We also learned that words are formed with the letters of the English alphabet. We also learned about the different types of sentences. Today we will be learning about the parts of a sentence. But before moving into the lesson, I want you all to familiarize with a few terms you would come across in the lesson. Children, in this lesson, you will come across words like main verb and auxiliary verb. Now, what is a main verb and what is an auxiliary verb? Main verb means action word. For example, sleep, dance, write, run, sing, etc. Now, what is an auxiliary verb? An auxiliary verb is a word which helps the main verb in a sentence. Therefore, they are also called helping verbs. They convey the time in the sentence. It means these words help us in knowing whether an action is over or it is still happening or it will happen on a future date. Let us have a look at the auxiliary verbs. Is, are, am, was, were, have, has, had, do, does, did, will, shall, would, should, can, could, may, might, ought. Now, coming back to our lesson on subject and predicate. A sentence has two parts, subject and predicate. Now let us learn what a subject and a predicate is. The part of a sentence which tells about someone or something is called subject. The part of a sentence that tells something about the subject is called predicate. Look at the picture carefully, children. Nick is playing with the ball. Here, we are talking about Nick. Therefore, Nick is the subject. Now, whatever is being said about Nick is the predicate. So here, is playing with the ball is the predicate. Let's look at another example. This table is brown in color. Here, we are talking about the table. Therefore, this table is the subject. And whatever is being said about the table is predicate. Therefore, is brown in color is the predicate. Now, let us learn how to find out the subject in a sentence. Look out for the auxiliary verbs in the sentence. Place the WH question words who or what before the auxiliary verbs and frame a question. For example, Sita is a good girl. In this sentence, is the auxiliary verb. Now placing the WH question word who before the auxiliary verb is, we frame a question like this. Who is a good girl? The answer we get is Sita. Therefore, Sita is the subject and is a good girl is the predicate. If the sentence has no auxiliary verb but only the main verb, place the WH question word who or what before the main verb and frame the question. For example, Mr. Sood goes to the market in the morning. In this sentence, goes is the main verb. Now placing the WH question word who before the main verb, we frame a question like this. Who goes to the market in the morning? The answer we get is Mr. Sood. Therefore, Mr. Sood is the subject and goes to the market in the morning is the predicate. If a sentence has both an auxiliary verb and a main verb, concentrate only on the auxiliary verb. Place the WH question word who or what before the auxiliary verb and frame a question. Let's understand this better with the help of an example. My mother has gone to the market. Here, the word has is the auxiliary verb and the word gone is the main verb. But let's concentrate only on the auxiliary verb has. Place the WH question word before the word has and frame a question like this. Who has gone to the market? The answer we get is my mother. Therefore, my mother is the subject and has gone to the market is predicate. Now look at this sentence. Stop talking. Children, this is an imperative sentence. And if you remember, an imperative sentence states instruction, order, request, or advice. And when instructions and orders are given, or request is made, or an advice is rendered, we usually don't name that person because this is given to the person in front of us. Imagine your classroom, children. When the class gets noisy, the teacher often says, "Stop talking." Whom is she saying to? Who is the listener there? It's you all. Therefore, you are the subject there to whom she is saying, "Stop talking." Similarly, in this sentence, the subject is you, though it is not mentioned here. Let's now try framing questions for a few sentences in order to find out the subject. The first sentence, my cat has a bushy tail. In this sentence, the auxiliary verb is has. Place the question word just before has and frame a question. Who has a bushy tail? The answer you get is my cat. Therefore, the subject is my cat and the predicate is has a bushy tail. Come to the next sentence. The animals at the zoo were unwell. In this sentence, you have the auxiliary verb were. Place the question word just before the auxiliary verb and frame a question. Who were unwell? You get the answer as the animals at the zoo. Therefore, the subject is the animals at the zoo and the predicate is were unwell. Come to the next sentence. Dogs bark at strangers. Here, you don't have an auxiliary verb. You only have the main verb in this sentence. Therefore, place the question word who just before bark and frame a question. Who bark at strangers? You get the answer as dogs. Therefore, dogs is the subject and bark at strangers is the predicate. Come to the next sentence. My brother has reached home. In this sentence, you have an auxiliary verb and the main verb too. In such a case, as per the rule, we have to concentrate only on the auxiliary verb. So place the question word just before the auxiliary verb and frame a question. Who has reached home? The answer you get is my brother. Therefore, the subject is my brother and the predicate is has reached home. Now look at the next sentence. Get out of the room. This is an imperative sentence and order given. When someone says, get out of the room, it is understood that he is saying it to someone. That means a listener is present there and she is addressing it to the listener. Therefore, the listener is the subject. Therefore, in this case, the subject is you. I have a worksheet for you to evaluate your understanding of the lesson, subject and predicate. I give you 2 minutes. Circle the subject and underline the predicate. These are the answers. Cross-check your answers with these answers and find out how much you have scored. Hope you enjoyed learning the lesson. Thank you.